back in September, around September, or actually August 30th, 2017, I made one of the stupidest impulsive decisions of my life, all because I was so hell-bent on doing the right thing for myself, or being so hell-bent and, anal retentive to stand up for myself. And when I was at that low point in my life, I felt like I had to unleash my rampage, which was, bad judgment towards one of my best friends, Chandler. And of course, in me doing so, it resulted in a shitstorm. And, amongst one of my sentences, I mentioned something about my friend Mark Besmia being in prison, and that gave him the impression I was living my life as a delinquent until I provided proof and context of the contrary. Then the only way we could have moved on from it is if I didn't create any tensions from there. And of course, even when we buried the hatchet 2 months later, the consequences of my actions would still unfurl, even if we rebuilt back on good terms. Because, I am a victim of my own terrible judgment, because I'm just so anal retentive of standing up for myself and, always trying to do the right thing, but my bad judgment was not the right thing to do, because, undoubtedly, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do to really rectify anything or avert anything, and instead, the consequences of my actions led me to a very long-winded saga that lasted over half a decade, which involved sexual harassment as well as harassment and manipulation by anti-Semitists. And of course, the consequences of my actions, of me being so anal retentive to do the right thing, led me to being sexually harassed by a scumbag sexual predator. To the subscribers of mine or friends of mine that have been keeping up with my social media stuff, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what does this have to do with how I relate to Luke Skywalker? Well, I'll tell you. Okay, so Luke Skywalker saw into Kylo Ren's brain. He saw a very barbaric vision of the future because, Snoke had already turned his heart. And he knew if he even at all started a conversation with Kylo Ren, it wouldn't end well with him whatsoever. So, because Luke Skywalker saw the destruction of so much that he had worked for in the original trilogy, such as his new Jedi Order that he built roughly about 23 years on, 23 years, 2 decades, as well as the New Republic that would be visibly destroyed in The Force Awakens, as well as his best friend Han Solo that was killed by Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, and, just basically use your imagination of all the other things you saw in the sequel trilogy that was completely destroyed and fallen apart, such as the destruction of Kijimi, of course. And, how could all this be? He thought, at the faintest instinct, he thought he could prevent all that misery and anguish amongst the galaxy, but all his intentions led him to was a misleading impression by Kylo Ren, because that was just because of Luke Skywalker being so cognitively conflicted. It prompted him to ignite his lightsaber towards a sleeping Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo, because he didn't become Kylo Ren until he saw that his uncle, Luke, had that glowing green lightsaber right by him point blank, and then he, in self-defense, clashed with his lightsabers to protect himself, and because of that, he was given the impression that he was betrayed, and then, out of complete unbridled instinct, he took a couple of Luke's students and slaughtered the rest.
I saw darkness sensed it building in him. I'd seen it in moments during his training. I went to confront him. But then I looked inside, and it was beyond what I ever imagined. Snoke had already turned his heart. He would bring destruction and pain and death at the end of everything I love because of what he will become. And for the briefest moment of pure instinct, I thought I could stop it. It passed like a fleeting shadow. And I was left with shame. And with consequence. And the last thing I saw were the eyes of a frightened boy whose master had failed him. No! He must have thought I was dead. When I came to, the temple was burning. He had vanished with a handful of my students and slaughtered the rest. Leia blamed Snoke, but it was me. I failed.
And because of that, Luke realized that his mistake led to Kylo Ren contributing the diabolical First Order. And which probably led to Kylo Ren springing into action after his Jedi Temple burned, out of fierce malice towards Luke's impulsive action, because Luke was very anal retentive to do the right thing for his friends. And you know what? That feels more relatable than just Luke Skywalker going on a rampage towards stormtroopers and a bunch of Star Destroyers and a bunch of TIE fighters. That feels more impactful and emotionally engaging than just seeing a bunch of Jedi in the prequels just slice down battle droids like they're cardboard paper. Which is why no one really has much of a emotional impact amongst many of the heroes in the prequels, and very much so still have a lot of emotional weight on Luke. And so when his old master Yoda gives him a little pep talk once Luke Skywalker taps back into the Force, he was emboldened to do the smartest thing any Jedi could do. Face down the First Order by using his knowledge and defense to force project himself across the galaxy to buy enough time for the Resistance to escape and then rebuild themselves as an army. Only Poe was smart enough to realize this, so then they decided to find their way out of the cave. This was Luke's plan. Luke's plan was to distract the First Order and not harm a single hair on his nephew. Do everything the complete opposite of what people expected Luke Skywalker to do. And you know what? This was probably the best send-off you could have done to Luke. It's beautiful and symbolic. He used his teachings of his master, Yoda, that a Jedi uses his powers for knowledge and defense, never to attack. He did not attack a single hair on Kylo Ren whatsoever. All he did was troll the First Order, fool them into thinking he was actually physically there, confuse them as to whether or not why he wasn't dying from all the barrage from the walkers. And then, once he disappears, Kylo Ren realized he was trolled. That is brilliant. And you know what? To close off Luke's chapter of his life, he stares off into the sunset on his island on Ahch-To, and then transcends into the Force. Also, I'd like to add the fact that I like the parallel between me and Luke, where based on my regret for my actions, I went to Warsaw, Poland as a getaway for solitude, just like how Luke Skywalker, based on his remorse and regret towards his actions, went to the first Jedi Temple on Ahch-To as a getaway from his barbaric trauma. So yeah, he went to Ahch-To to get away from his trauma. I went to Warsaw, Poland to get away from my trauma. Both he and I wanted solitude, and we got it. So, you cannot say that Luke Skywalker isn't relatable in that regard. Because we wanted for the sequels to write our heroes in a very relatable manner, and we got it. You can't say that it's poor writing whatsoever. And the way that it's executed feels extremely satisfying, and it really is a damn good valid reason of why I draw a parallel between my traumatic situation to Luke's, even though there was no weapons and death involved. It was just a lot of panic and barbaric rage. You kind of get the point. And it goes to show that we need to show that heroes can make mistakes because of them conflicting with their emotions and cognitive dissonance. Because if we don't write our heroes as humans, we don't get any interesting stories. Oh, but Rey doesn't ever make a mistake.
Can you shut the fuck up?
There's a 2.5-hour video about why Rey is not a Mary Sue. Give that a watch while you still can. I'm not gonna make this video any more bloated than I already did about why Rey isn't a Mary Sue, because about my parallel to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. So, shut it and move along. Like it or not, people actually have reasons that they love the sequel trilogy, and it's more than just your ridiculous oversimplification of saying, oh, you just love it for the explosions, don't let the action lull you into a mindless fan brat, blah, blah, blah. We just love the psychology that they represent in these movies. We just love the emotional engagement that we have with it. We love how relatable the heroes are. Fucking hell. Stupid thing. Stupid car decided to quit out of the recording and go to Pandora, but whatever. That is beautiful and symbolic. It's a fitting end to the main protagonist's story. He uses his powers for knowledge and defense, never to attack. He did not attack a single hair on Kylo Ren, and he defended the Resistance and gave them enough time to escape Crate, and then the following movie, as well as some other story in between, such as The Rise of the Resistance, which is a story that you go on the Rise of the Resistance ride in Disney World, enough time to rebuild themselves as an army, beyond just fitting inside the Millennium Falcon. It's beautiful and symbolic. It's very powerful end to Luke Skywalker's physical life. And then, the following movie, he gets to embolden a very discouraged Rey to face down the most evil man of the galaxy, which is Rey's grandfather, Emperor Palpatine, and which, in result, basically, well, as you very much can use your damn brain, Luke Skywalker's emboldening words is what saved the galaxy from the Emperor, from the resurrected Emperor, from the Final Order. Rey Skywalker saved the galaxy because of Luke Skywalker emboldening her. So yeah, Luke Skywalker was not useless. He used his powers for knowledge and defense. I don't know how much I can keep stressing this, but the fact that Luke Skywalker is prone to mistakes, and the fact that it led him to fugly consequences, as well as consequences amongst the galaxy, is basically a novelty to how heroes are only human. They make mistakes, and how a lot of people that are so prone and anal retentive and hell-bent on trying to do the right thing and prevent the bad from being led astray is very emotionally engaging. That is very intellectual writing right there. Not only is it intellectual, but extremely brilliant. what purpose or end does it serve to just write Luke Skywalker as some sort of Force unleashed god? Nothing. If he was written the way Luke Skywalker was in the expanded universe, it would be pretty fucking boring. But no. You know what? Maybe my mistakes towards my best friend Chandler, maybe the consequences of my actions that were so lingering, maybe that has a novelty to it. Maybe that has value. You know, it's better to put me through a very traumatic saga of mine than to leave me with nothing and have me not understand brilliant storytelling in these Hollywood movies. Never mind Star Wars at all. And Rian Johnson, don't let those assholes dissuade you from writing the heroes the way you did. Ignore those idiots. Keep up the good work that you do, and I really hope that you come through with your trilogy. So yeah, because of my terrible consequences, it led me to sexual harassment, someone preying onto me, someone using me in my vulnerable state after I made those terrible mistakes. And ironically, in the sequel trilogy, Luke Skywalker was on his state of solitude on that island of Vaktu for 6 years. And the sexual harassment lasted for 6 years as well. Rise of Skywalker, coincidentally, was 7 years after Luke's confrontation to Ben Solo. So maybe if you actually took the time out of your day to understand the novelty to heroes making mistakes, or feeling are having this cognitive conflict within themselves, being so torn in deciding what is the right thing or what isn't, you'd probably feel more satisfied with The Last Jedi like I am. Because there is value in presenting conflict amongst heroes, and a lot of other complexities to how other young and vulnerable people like Ben Solo fell to the dark side because of misleading impressions. However, I will say this, I had much more malice in me than Luke did. Luke was only conflicted and was just confused on what to do. I, on the other hand, let the emotions get the better of me, and, of course, the only other difference is that I didn't have a weapon in my hand. It was all words being weaponized by me. But the other difference is that Chandler didn't also join a diabolical faction that is prone to taking over the entire world, like how the First Order is hell-bent on taking over the entire galaxy. Because, I mean, as long as he forgave me, that's a happy ending, but still, consequences still got the better of me, just like how it got the better of Luke and other heroes amongst the galaxy. I could go on about how there's value in the whole narration about how some things are stronger than blood. If only some people were to understand the concept and symbolism behind Rey Skywalker. But this video is about why I relate to Luke, not about Rey, or Rey taking on the Skywalker name to honor Luke and Leia. It just makes no sense. Why don't you people understand this brilliant writing? Because not only would it just be so fucking boring, but it also would be very hypocritical if they would just pander to you, capitulate to you, begging for them to just go on this indestructible god mode, slicing through stormtroopers like they're cardboard. You know, I find it ironic that all of you keep wanking off this Mary Sue shtick because, well, the minimalist accomplishments Rey had supposedly makes her an indestructible god, but when Luke makes mistakes, it's the worst piece of writing in the world. Those are the biggest double standards ever. Why is it that you want Luke Skywalker to be a Gary Stew, but Rey to be the most clumsy fucking idiot in all of Star Wars? Then again, you already blindly, stupidly think that Rey is more of an idiot than Jar Jar Binks, because you love to blow stupid shit out of proportions without really understanding why you're even saying all this stupid shit in the first place. Still, the point still stands. Luke Skywalker was so tempted to do the right thing and was so confused on what to do when he saw that barbaric vision into his nephew's dreams. So he ignited his lightsaber, and I felt like I was a bit beaten down during my miscues with my best friend Chandler and the misleading communications he and I were having, and how I was putting two and two together amongst our mutual friends. So I, much like Luke Skywalker, made mistakes, and it led me to very barbaric consequences. And you know what? It's realistic. The way they wrote Luke was absolutely realistic. He didn't want history to repeat, so he was confused on what to do. He didn't want the destruction of everything he ever saw and built up since the original trilogy to fall apart. But he also didn't want to kill his nephew. So of course, it made sense why he had those cognitive issues. Much like me, much like how I was stuck in a bubble and felt like I was doing the right thing, only for me to lead myself to worse consequences of my actions. And because of that, the consequences, Luke was left with shame and consequence, just like I was. My bad judgment towards Chandler, and Luke's bad judgment towards his nephew. There was a lot of cognitive problems that were going on between the two of us. And I used to pretend to be Luke Skywalker all the time when I was playing with my friends who loved Star Wars. And I always pretended that I was Luke Skywalker by blowing up the Death Star and facing down Darth Vader, and even unmasking Darth Vader. And now, more than ever, I relate to him because of that situation. If more people actually took the time out of the day to understand the concept of humanizing our heroes and why trauma is a very normal thing to go through whenever you're trying to do the right thing or when you have a good heart, the community for Star Wars would be a much better place. And we otherwise probably wouldn't have all these unnecessary shitstorms coming from so many people, well, specifically you, fandom menace. But then again, do people really understand storytelling at all? Are we always there for the spectacle, explosions, and flippy-doos and action? It's always style over substance for so many of these people. Never the brilliant storytelling. Never the humanizing situations. Never anything relatable. Never anything that can present any moral or theme that would stick with you for so many years to come. And why you would feel so nostalgic whenever you would revisit it. It's the most brilliant piece of writing that I've ever seen in any of Star Wars because, well, I relate to it. And this situation that I'm talking to you guys about has stuck with me. And the fact that I was lied to, which utterly made that situation for nothing for me, is why I relate to Luke Skywalker in the sequels even more than I ever did as a kid, pretending to be him and even dressing up as Luke Skywalker in high school. It's symbolic. And that, well, his death is a symbolic end to his journey. In Revenge of the Sith, his aunt and uncle stare off into the sunset. Birth of Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker dreaming of becoming a bigger person than he is right now on that moisture farm in A New Hope. The life of Luke Skywalker. And now, Luke Skywalker going out as a hero, saving the Resistance, and inspiring hope across the galaxy in The Last Jedi. Death of Luke Skywalker. Nevertheless, Rian Johnson couldn't have done it any more brilliantly. It's poetic and symbolic. So, what better way could you have written Luke Skywalker? I'd love to hear it, because, well, going through trauma, feeling regret and remorse for your actions because you always wanted to do the right thing, but have cognitive dissonance and cognitive conflicts within you, feeling confused on what to do in such a barbaric situation, getting emboldened by your old master, Yoda, whenever you feel dissuaded or feel like a defeatist, inspiring hope across the galaxy for your heroic actions, gazing off into the sunset, knowing that you did a good heroic deed for the Resistance and the galaxy. He didn't even go off in a very gruesome or barbaric way. He wasn't sliced down. He wasn't tortured in some medieval device. He wasn't violently executed. He didn't die in a fiery explosion. He wasn't trapped poignantly. He went out like a hero. He went out on that island, stared off into the sunset, and then disappeared into the Force right after he saved the Resistance. That was the best way you would have put an end to the protagonist of that franchise. That was the best send-off you could have thought for Luke Skywalker. The best send-off for our hero of the franchise. The best. There was no other way you could have written him off like that. There was no other way you could have, no better way to kill off Luke Skywalker than that symbolic, poetic writing right there. And you know what? You made me, who always pretended to be Luke Skywalker as a kid, relate to him even more as an adult. Especially after all the shit that went down with me. And you know what? Going through all that and watching that sequence unfold in the sequel trilogy never felt more satisfying. I probably could go on for a bit, but I think I made my point. So yeah, the fact that my bad judgment and Luke's bad judgment led to fugly consequences, and then me as well as Luke Skywalker himself trying to rectify everything that went down in the past, is why I absolutely fucking love the sequels, much less The Last Jedi in particular, since the main topic of this video is mostly primarily hinges on The Last Jedi. And after the closing chapter of Luke Skywalker, well, I already made the recaption that he emboldened Rey to not sink down to the defeatist level that Luke did. So I think I can sign off on this video here. So have a good night, my people.